Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Suicide Squad Isekai Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we officially have an intro and outro for the show. First and foremost, the intro. I might be crazy, whatever, I don't know if there's elements of the Batman theme mixed in there, because it was definitely invoking, Batman elements to the theme song, but once again, it's so wild just seeing these characters just full blown animating it up. Also, the outro is so wild because it's mainly Amanda Waller doing the dance moves and stuff. I was like, oh, that's so weird. But I guess it makes me think of Go Go Loser Ranger, because if you haven't seen Go Go Loser Ranger, the outro is literally a dance number. But it also makes me wonder, I don't know if this is meant to be that case or not, but it almost feels like it's also meant to be kind of an homage to Peacemaker. Well, because if you've never seen the TV show Peacemaker, it also has the intro to the the TV show's opening is a full dance number. So I don't know if it's meant to be a slight homage to that, especially considering Peacemaker's in this, but maybe I'm reading too much into that. Also, the song is by Mori Calliope. I saw her name in the outro. I was like, wait, the VTuber? I was like, oh. I mean, I don't think I knew that she was a singer. I feel like I might have known that, but either way, I saw her name and I was like, oh shit, that's wild. Either way, tangents and all that aside, we're picking up in the aftermath of our heroes getting, well, I say heroes, Jesus, our villains getting locked up. Obviously, we get introduced to the queen of this realm. We still don't know what's really evoking this war between the monsters and the humans, just being different, I guess. Maybe that's all we need. Especially considering, I'm curious to see ultimately what side of things our Suicide Squad falls under, because they end up being buddy-buddy with monsters by the end, but you're also going up against monsters, so how does that work? There's self-preservation on their part, because they're only in this world once again to get resources and stuff, so beyond that, it's I'm sure conquering it probably would help, but I don't even know if that's their main motivation other than making it easier to get resources from this place. But anyway, the knight that witnessed everything last episode, his name's Cecil, and he tries to tell his queen about all this, who has no interest in our characters, even though they swayed the battle. It's also interesting, too, to find out he actually seems to be someone pretty important. He had a special armor. She says specifically, the princess gave it to you. So why does he not have it anymore? Why does it seem like he's kind of fallen from grace? Maybe it's a special armor, one time, in the great battle you had it and then you lost it because maybe you just got old. I'm curious, what it is, because he had, a very, specific armor. You were, God tier, and now you're just, a regular knight again. Could we also meet the queen's daughter, the princess Fiona, who wants to meet with the people? Because at first I was looking at her, I was like, she definitely looks like Harley, which I'm wondering is Harley going to disguise as her later on or something like that. Because it seemed like while she was watching the video, she really took notice of Harley, and I'm curious why. Maybe she felt maybe that might be the twist at this, that Fiona is this, almost Harley's doppelganger. Their character design wise, they look similar enough that I'm I don't know if that's what they're going to go for. But it did seem like she specifically latched onto Harley. Seemed to be the person she was interested to talk to the most, but who knows. But either way, our crew are locked up in prison, and the only one who's not too strict. Well, Peacemaker does bring up something where he's yeah, the fact of the matter is we do have that time limit, which I did forget. Right, they have to get near a signal every 72 hours or the heads automatically, their necks automatically explode. And I love that others are oh wow, you're you actually have a brain under there, which I'm oh, so he's, once again, my familiarity with the character of Peacemaker is only the one from the Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker TV show, and he's an idiot. So I guess this one is maybe Peacemaker traditionally is smart in the comics. I know it's been around in the comics before, but obviously I think they've reworked him even more recently post Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, and the Peacemaker TV show, but obviously Clayface is enjoying this whole operation because it's like, hey man, like, you know, like we got Isekai, we're in a different world. He's like, basically he's talking about the cliches of how it would work. Like we'd come to this world and we'd be heralded as heroes, but it kind of hasn't worked out that way for some reason. I forgot he made some kind of remark, and Deadshot was like, "Oh, you must be some third-rate actor. That's why I've never heard of you." So he looks at this as like an opportunity. Like the moment he slips past the bars using his powers, he's like, "Oh yeah, like you know, this would be the point in the story where like the hero ends up having to leave his compatriots behind, and their sacrifice basically makes him stronger because that's how the cliche thing works in these movies." And I love that the squad is like, you know what, screw that, and they started yelling for the guards. It's like, yeah, well, we're not going to just let you get away. Who cares if we're sabotaging you getting away? That maybe that'll help us in the end. To be fair, he was a selfish prick who was going to abandon you, but it's still kind of a thing of, nah, like, we'd rather you get beat up and thrown back in a cell with us, so. And they basically have this world's version of meta cuffs on him, so he can't use his powers anymore. Oh, and all the while this is happening, King Shark is full and sleep, so he's not waking up. Then they end up going to what is essentially the cafeteria, which leads to beef with some monsters because there's a language barrier. Which, I mean, Deadshot was like, yeah, it doesn't matter what prison you go to, like, the rules are the same, like, it's a territorial situation. So you had Clayface trying to be mediator, saying, like, oh, yeah, you gotta talk, and we can talk this through. We don't want to cause more of a ruckus. Ends up getting knocked out, and it turns into a giant tussle with our trio of Harley, Deadshot, and Peacemaker coming out on top. And it's like, yeah, like they're the top dogs. They typically would be in any prison situation, so. And then they proceeded to be like taken down by magic. It's like, yeah, that's kind of a cheat code in a situation. You don't really know the rules of this world yet, so they all get thrown into basically solitary confinement, where they end up running into Red Flag. The moment he popped up, I was like, oh, I saw you in the opening. I was like, it's got to be Red Flag, isn't it? Yep. So he was part of the squad that was sent here originally. It's interesting because he was saying, like, right, whoever was your team leader, it was probably Katana, right? And then she was like, no. So I was like, interesting. So the people that came with Rick are working with the villain. Well, who appears to be the villain, maybe, I don't know. But it's like, what is Katana's role in this? So it's like, cool. Because I figured, like, the Suicide Squad wasn't the first squad to be sent here, especially considering we saw Katana. And like I said, King Shark. Based on the intro, I know at least one of those characters is the Thinker. So, except he's not bald in this. He is, based on the character design, it seems like he has, like, a full head of hair. I think it's, like, because it is more like, I don't know how it works in the comics, because I'm thinking of like the two different versions. Obviously, like the version from the Flash TV show, and then there's the one that was in the Suicide Squad played by Peter Capaldi. That one just had the bolts out of his head. They're not bolts, but like they're the things that boost his brain, making him the Thinker. Like they were in his head. In the TV show, it was a helmet that let him do that. So it looked like it's a helmet in this one as well, based on like what we saw in the opening for the show. But my point being, like, how do we get from, okay, he's on his own, yet the rest of the squad, not unless they got Enchantress, you know, she's, like, controlling them. Like I said, it feels like that might be the vibe. Like, one of the characters seemed like they might have been Enchantress, but I wasn't sure. So not unless she's kind of running things, and maybe she's controlling the villain, and she's the big bad. I'm so curious to see what they're gonna do, because of the way this is done, it is like, okay, it's kind of like the first Suicide Squad movie. Like, hey, we're just gonna dump you into this, kind of introduce you to this concept of what the Suicide Squad is and kind of who they are, and also, you know, because I'm curious who was this mainly aimed at, like anime fans in general, or specifically giving DC fans something else, like, you know, like give you something a little different. I mean, there is going to be a crossover between anime fans and like DC or Marvel fans. So, but I'm curious, is this mainly meant for like DC fans who might not be anime fans, but it's like, all right, this is something different. I'll give it a taste. But it also could just be like, no, it's also meant to be aimed at anime fans who might not know anything about DC at all. So it's like, oh, let's introduce you to maybe you had no interest in any superhero movie, so this is your introduction to the Suicide Squad, or at least the concept of the Suicide Squad. Because even Deadshot says the thing like from the movie. So what are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad of some sort? Like it's like he did the thing. He did the thing. He said the line. He said he said the name of the squad that they are. You know. It's interesting because obviously Peacemaker's like I don't. He's like his true leader, like the person he follows is Liberty, but because him and like Waller are on the same side in this regard of wanting what's best in the grand scheme of things, that's why he's fighting this whole battle. But you know, Rick once again explores more about what I had assumed was the reason they came here. Like I said, resources. But it's like, yeah, it's like everything we can do to basically make our country come out on top. That's what this is about. Once again, it's Waller. She kind of worries about things on a world scale, but typically, like, her motivations are America-centric. I mean, she's a government worker, so it's understandable. She's a pretty high-ranking government worker, so it makes sense that she would come from that perspective of putting America's interest first. And, like, we got to make sure America comes out on top. America! So it's also interesting too that like Rick had to be like, oh, like I know, and he like basically names everyone, and everyone's kind of like, wait, you're Harley, which I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like Joker is so infamous, like even in this universe, he's infamous enough, but it's like I guess like none of them, they've been so like all doing their own criminal thing. To be fair, it's like she probably rarely leaves Gotham, so people probably have heard of her name but never saw what she looked like, because he probably was like, whoa, he was like, hot damn, you're Harley, you're her. So I thought that was interesting. Her name and reputation precedes her, so like I guess not many people knew what she looked like. Specifically, Deadshot had that reaction, but I don't know what Peacemaker knew, and I don't remember if I think at that point in time Clayface was awake, which he was excited to be like, right, I was right about the whole Isekai situation. So, and then our villains proceeded to bust out of their cells, and Harley kind of activates some of her power. It does seem like whatever your fundamentals naturally are, you get a boost to it. Because we didn't get an opportunity with Deadshot or Peacemaker, but we saw it once again with Clayface, that basically the magic has enhanced his abilities, that he could probably do a little more. Like, I'm sure he could probably do the projectile thing even already, but I think it probably gives him even more control and capabilities with his clay to kind of use magic to operate it like even more, pushing his abilities. But Harley like swings one of the clubs and like knocks a guy through like the ceiling of the, and it's like, okay, so she has superhuman strength, because it's like, once again, it's like, oh, it's a bat, and it's like, yo, that's her element. It's like you need something that you're familiar with. Oh god, I'm going to make the most like niche reference. It's kind of like the fucking divine it's the Divine Knights in the Trails of Cold Steel games. You have to find a weapon that the Awakener is allocated towards, and it has to be reflected in your Divine Knight because it has like a synchronization to it. So because Harley like was using like this giant club, which is similar to her bat and most likely the mallet, it kind of gave her a boost where it was just kind of like, right, this is something she's familiar with. So without even thinking about it, unintentionally, subconsciously, she ends up channeling the magic through it. So I'm curious to see how that necessarily works. Will they be able to do like casting full-blown magical spells? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's incantations. It just seems like you can't. Well, I think there have been incantations so far. So, but I mean, Clayface didn't have to do it. So, like I said, it just seems like it's a magical energy you're able to just kind of utilize. Maybe it's just in the air. Everyone in this universe can just use magic. Maybe some people just are more attuned to the magic in this world than others are. But yeah, they make a jailbreak. Your boy Clayface is trying to put on a giant speech because he's treating this so theatrically. I love like his getup in this is just going to be him in his actor form wearing a suit and stuff like that. Like, because he's playing into it, because this is, you know, everywhere is a stage type of situation. So, but he's trying to put on a performance. I'm like, right, language barriers or yada yada, it doesn't matter. But it's like, nah, you have Peacemaker being like, yeah, shut up, whatever. Like, are you guys just going to stay, like, locked up? Like, let's go. And what really motivated them was seeing Nanaue, or King Shark, rip into humans. So it's like, oh, like, these are humans who kicked our asses, but hey, there's a monster with them. Cool. I mean, plus Clayface isn't in his monster form, so they have even less reason to kind of fuck with him. Yeah, like I just love like the artistic like nature of just their escape and how like Harley gets like the freaking mop or broom or whatever and like starts paintbrushing and the monsters work with her. Clayface is like spinning around like his arms stretching him out like a la Monkey D. Luffy or whatever, or Plastic Man, and keeping it, or Plastic Man or Elongated Man, you know, keeping it DC related wise, and doing like a little bit of a dance number. I'm like, what the fuck is this sequence? And then like also Peacemaker's kind of doing his flexing thing, and some of the monsters flex with him because like there was that one what was he, an ogre or whatever, the green dude who like really respects Harley. He's like, yo, looking at her like thrash through people. It's just once again them having so much fun and basically turning the prison upside down. And so like they didn't bother escaping. They just chilled because it's like, cool, we've made the prison ours. I mean, understandable that feels like the villain thing to do. That it's like, yeah, that feels so true to them in that moment. And even Rick Flag is like, you ass hats, we got more important things to do and you're sitting here wasting time. So they're chilling, relaxing, drinking, partying it up with the monsters that got set free as well, because everyone else is like knocked out or either dead. So, and at the same time, Cecil shows up because he came to the prison because Fiona wanted to talk to them. Because it's like, right, they could be the heroes to help us, but it's like, yeah, they did all that. So it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode ends up taking us with all of this. I'm curious to find out, like I said, whether or not we'll get into the nitty gritty of like what's going on in this world. Maybe that Cecil will kind of be able to explain things better. But once again, understanding why like Katana's not with Rick, even though they are here. Once again, are we going to pull the Suicide Squad situation when it comes to Peacemaker's real mission? And when it comes to the equipment stuff, because their equipment was supposed to have gotten smashed when the helicopter came down. So I wonder if there's any remnants, because the point was like, right, we need to get close to the gate because that way we can at least get the signal that will reset the bombs, hopefully, because they've got like less than 60 hours now. So they did set up, the fact is that there is kind of like pushback against this kingdom because there are people starving, and obviously the princess feels bad about that, and even Cecil does, but there's a lot of higher ups who don't care. You know, it's kind of like, oh yeah, like all they care about is basically kissing the queen's ass and all that they're able to accomplish. But it's like, yeah, your loyal subjects are kind of suffering and you're not doing enough for them. So it's going to be interesting to see if our heroes end up being kind of like I keep saying heroes, our villains end up being heroes of the people type of situation, and that ends up being a part of their story. So like I said, we'll have to wait to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.